All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the AI Summer Series from Rogue Workforce Partnership. And today we're talking about the role of AI in construction. I'm Mary Lockwood, and I am the Executive Director of Rogue Workforce Partnership. And before we get started, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to have about a 40-minute conversation. And we ask that guests keep themselves muted and also with your videos off. But that doesn't mean that you won't have an opportunity to ask questions of our guests, because you can type those questions right in the chat. There's some Rogue Workforce Partnership staff members monitoring the chat. So we'll be looking at that. So feel free to ask your questions throughout the conversation, and we will do our best to ask them of the guests as well. And then at the end, you're going to want to stick around because we have some special information for you, ideas to keep you going in this conversation, and we'll talk about next steps and the rest of it. So without further ado, let me introduce our guests. Today we have Mason Drake, and Mason is the project manager at Outlier Construction. Outlier Construction is a real estate development and construction firm offering commercial building services across Southern Oregon. As a project manager, Mason oversees complex construction projects and manages client relationships. He's a prominent voice in the regional construction industry and was nominated as one of the Rogue Valley's top 10 emerging leaders this March. Congratulations to Mason. And in his free time, Mason enjoys coaching young people in sports and in the trades. And welcome to Mason. And then we also
Yep.
have Randall Lee, and Randall's the owner and operator of Advanced Air. Advanced Air is a Medford-based HVAC company and Southern Oregon's leading geothermal dealer. As its owner and operator, Randall leads the company in operations, business development, HR, equipment procurement, and many more aspects. And before owning Advanced Air, he worked in publicity, photography, construction, and masonry. And he has a degree in professional writing, marketing, communications from SOU. Wow, that's quite a resume. Well, welcome, both of you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you. Appreciate it.
All right, well, let's jump in with this first question. Mason, I think we had decided that you were going to take this first, although it's the same question for you both. And that is, construction and the trades have a reputation for being slow to adopt new technology. But you're both here talking to me today because you're interested in how AI fits into the picture moving forward. So let's start with the basic case for AI. In an industry built on experience and craftsmanship, why should AI be a part of the conversation?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there. Not only are we tend to be a bit slower in adopting new technologies, new operations, changes in general in construction, we're also dealing with more of an aged workforce as well. So we've got the gap there on the technology side of things by not only being late to the game for the most part, but we're also dealing with implementing new technologies with an older workforce that might not be as apt to picking those things up as quickly. So I think you nailed it with this first question. We see a lot of benefits in AI in terms of simplifying a lot of our day-to-day processes. We utilize AI more or less for our document review, summaries, findings that tend to take us a lot of time sifting through multiple documents, finding an avenue to kind of consolidate and condense those lists a lot quicker than it would take us reviewing, flipping back and forth on our own. Along with that, we find a lot of benefits in creating templates, things that we can just pluck away, pull off of, whether it be filled out or not filled out through utilizing AI. So we find benefits in kind of standardizing our day-to-day processes. It's also really beneficial in terms of the construction industry where there's multiple avenues of phases of construction. So going from a pre-construction phase into construction, creating those reviews, looking for constructability items, any areas that might have been missed in a design, getting ahead of those situations that could turn into a much costly item down the road once we hit construction. So yeah, I think a lot of what we utilize it for currently is just streamlining our standardized processes. through more or less kind of the background things that folks don't always see in construction, which is a lot of the paperwork and review side of things that we're working on more or less on the office side. I think we still take a lot of pride in our folks that are boots on the ground and actually installing things and constructing things out in the field. I think there's avenues to benefit them in a similar fashion, but on more of a condensed scale, limited to the drawings and specifications that we're looking at for a job. So kind of looking at it in two separate ways there between field and office management.
That's great. And Randall, what would you say, just in terms of why is AI a part of this conversation related to construction at all?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mary. Skilled, dependable talent is the greatest asset of any company, but it's also the greatest challenge, the greatest headwind of successful organizations. In theory, AI, if properly executed, should help fill that deficiency of skilled, dependable labor, right? So that's kind of how we're looking at it. And we saw this begin probably like in 2017, 2018. We saw a lot of experience leaving the workforce, and then that was accelerated through the COVID years. And now we have a lot of younger, more inexperienced talent, and frankly, not even as dependable. And so if we can utilize technology and some of the tools that are being deployed to offset some of that experience and even offset some of that dependability, we are in a better situation. So it should offset the skilled labor crisis. We're looking at infusing AI into our processes, really at all integrations, vertical integrations of the organization, from business administration to marketing and communication, like where we need to execute cadences, through call handling and scheduling, where clients are maybe more inclined in this era to schedule an appointment without maybe a customer-facing representative. We're looking at field work and diagnostics, where you have these elaborate CRM platforms where all of our job data and client information is stored, and we can document and record these tasks specific to a client and to a project, and so there's a ton of data there that can be pulled later, and then also to that same extent with the field work in diagnosing problems where we're linked in with our manufacturers and our distributors, where really all of the HVAC technicians and organizations in different regions and even nationwide are kind of sharing things that they're finding out in the field, because a lot of this new equipment is technologically advanced as well. Things are changing very rapidly. And so manufacturing will push out new product without, fully testing it in the field. They'll test it in a lab, but that's different than in the field. And then, as contractors, we're left to kind of scratch our head and make it work in practicality. Well, so contractors, dealers are kind of working together and logging all of these deficiencies that we're finding with certain equipment, and then that can be tapped into on the back end utilizing AI. So there's some field and diagnostic work that's being done, but then also we're starting to utilize it on the legal end, like Mason mentioned, in reviewing documents. We have sublets on our campus here, and so reviewing those legal documents to make sure that they're current, that they're up to date, that there's not hidden liabilities that maybe we've overlooked in past years. Some of these documents we've been working on for several years, and sometimes things get added and subtracted, and you got to make sure that your template is good. So there's a number of ways that we're using and implementing AI, and look forward to what the future holds.
That's really neat. I would love to hear more about the workforce in terms of the data analytics too, if that's changing at all. But before we get there, Mason, I wanted to jump a bit into your day-to-day work as a project manager. So You're managing schedules, budgets, subcontractors, and clients all at the same time. I feel your pain. I personally was a tech project manager for a long time. I know that's a big job. And there's a lot of AI being marketed at project managers right now to help with estimating, scheduling, and risk flagging. Do you personally, I think you said you do use some AI-enabled tech like this in your day-to-day work. And what does it look like in terms of that?
Yeah, I absolutely utilize AI on a daily basis at this point. What we've found is it's difficult to trust an AI in terms of what it's feeding you. So we find the benefit in sifting through all of the documents, consolidating, summarizing. With that, we've ran into instances where we still need to do that back check process, review on our own, understand what we're talking about. The one interesting thing about construction is the multiple the different parties that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So different personality types between an owner versus a design team versus subcontractor, and being able to just pick and pull AI information and send on is not something we've had very much luck with. So the human aspect of that and understanding the situation that you're in, how it needs to be communicated, when it needs to be communicated, and adding in the human aspect of that is still very important in the construction industry. On some of the budgets and estimating side of things, we haven't dove into it too much just because of the few instances that we have in like a test trial. We're not getting back the feedback that we want to on it. So we find value in more of the data entry side of things on production rates and work that was actually completed and identifying tracking on that front. But for our own estimates, there's so many oddities that come out of construction, whether it be site-specific constraints, access, time of work, labor rates, things of that nature. There's too many variables there to where we've been able to just pick, pull, and plug back in. Similar instance on some of the takeoff side of things and estimating. The few trials that we've used with it, we're not getting back the same quantities that we have on our end, and back checking processes come to find that we're taking things off the way that we normally would. So there's still learning to do there. I do think there's been nothing but change in this whole environment over the last year, especially the last 3 months. So this could be a completely different conversation in a week. It could be a completely different conversation in a month. Who knows? The data that we're getting back it's impressive, but it's not something that is tangible enough to hold on to yet. It's a similar situation with scheduling. There's just too many constraints. We're dealing with local market factors, our own personal understanding of subcontractors and their capacities, their crew sizes, that don't really allow us to play into like the turnkey plug and play usage of AI. So right now it's a lot of input, see what the output is, and then add in our own knowledge of those systems. So taking the initial 4 hours of work and turning that into 30 minutes is where we see the value. But from there, we still need to add in our own knowledge of those situations. The largest benefit that I've seen personally in my day-to-day is what Randall hit on with the legal side of things, whether it be owner contracts, subcontracts, reviewing proposals, what terms we should be aware of. Creating new contract documents is where we've seen a huge time save and a benefit to capturing our overall legal risk.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I definitely see some more legal documents, being done by AI in my world too. It's a benefit and a drawback too, because sometimes you just you wonder if it's hallucinating or not. So very interesting. And I'm sure you guys have ways to make sure that it's not. So Randall, Mason talked about clients, and in your world, they're more consumers or customers. And I'm interested, Advanced Air installs smart systems like connected thermostats, geothermal controls, automated HVAC platforms, and they're pretty intelligent. How do you see that your customers are engaging with that intelligence just here in the Rogue Valley? Are they really interested in the tech and cool stuff about it, or they just kind of let it run in the background? What are you seeing in terms of that?
People are definitely intrigued by the technology. For some of our more senior clients, they're intimidated by it. Younger clientele are asking a lot of questions. The degree to which technology is incorporated into our central air systems is and working in the background is super impressive. Um, this brings us to an important point. You know, we're familiar with automation. There's a lot of technology that's being nested under this term AI. And we've become familiar over the last, decade or more with automation. But then beyond automation, there's also like adjustive capacity and adaptive capacity and agentic artificial intelligence. So there's a number of things that are now kind of all being captured under this umbrella. Automation could probably be best illustrated by setting your thermostat and then programming it for certain days and occupancy and then just walking away and your central air system, just utilizing that schedule, that program. And it's been your comfort has been automated in large part. And, you can always make adjustments, but then we start getting into adjustive capacity where you start making rules for things for basically your scripting, the possibility of or a framework of how your central air system would work or how a workflow would synchronize. And then once you begin this process, the intelligence kind of moves step by step and it's scripted. And then you have adaptive capacity where a good example of that would be like our scheduling. So if somebody wants to schedule an appointment, we have programs that can now see our dispatch board and where a technician is located, and then allow an appointment to be booked within that routing. So pretty impressive. And then you have the agentic artificial intelligence where it's a learning. It's constantly learning, and so it's not all of the same. And I think that maybe as people and businesses are marketing artificial intelligence, I'm seeing a lot of automation also kind of sliding in under the guise of artificial intelligence. So that's interesting. But in the HVAC industry, there's a lot of smart controls. There's a lot of sensors now, and comfort is basically sensed on occupancy and how you're using a building or a home, the hours that you're there, how many people are there, basically the load or the call for heating or cooling. And the system can, without really even the occupant's knowledge, it can optimize the equipment's performance, the system's performance, and deliver comfort. And so it's pretty remarkable. The homeowner or the business, the property manager may not even really fully know what's going on. And then it's building the system, the HVAC system is building algorithms on the usage and on the equipment's performance and all of these other things, and learning how the space is being utilized, and then the comfort is being tailored, the performance of the equipment is being tailored to that occupancy and to the desired comfort level. So it's pretty fascinating.
I wonder, Randall, too, I want to stick with you for a bit because I wonder, you're talking about these smart systems. How is the workforce impacted, if at all? So, obviously there are software engineers or hardware engineers somewhere in the world creating these smart systems and all of this. But in terms of boots on the ground or your teams or those folks that are here in the Rogue Valley, is there different training that's required or a different approach that you need from your workforce in order to be able to install and use and service this technology?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's true. There's a lot more technology, and therefore there's a lot more training that is necessary. So our teams, both on the office side, the administrative side, and then the install side and the service, the technical side, we're spending a lot more on training than we ever have. And so our time is spent in training. There's a lot of warranty work, like I alluded to earlier, with manufacturers and distributors pushing out equipment and even technology before it's tested in the wild. We're the wild. So, we're figuring it out. And so we have a lot of high level problems that we solve. And I mean, I think of some of the projects that we've partnered with Outlier on, even that that require a great deal of knowledge and experience and resources, and you lean heavily on distribution and on manufacturing. So really, not only is expertise and training super important, but also the partnerships that you have and your ability to communicate complex challenges to your partners and work through them in a productive way. That's huge. And the other thing too that I should add about some of the agentic and adaptive sort of AI is that it's linking programs. So I just used a couple of examples, but we use multiple platforms, digital platforms for dispatching and for financials and for invoicing and for job management and everything. And so some of the AI, the tools that are being deployed are actually are tools that are linking platforms and sharing that information and passing it back and forth in a productive way. So there's a lot happening, and it takes a team of really smart people that are a lot smarter than me, to execute this stuff.
That's super interesting. Mason, I wonder, kind of riffing on what Randall was just saying, and also just in terms of the scale of the projects that Outlier does. You guys recently completed the Holly Theater, I think. How do you see that, what he was just describing as just kind of the complexity now of, integrated systems working together? Also, though, at scale, which is what your company is working on. Could you teach us a little bit or talk to us a little bit about how AI or robotics, agentic AI, to Randall's point, how these systems now maybe have changed the work, or if they've changed the work at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up a very valid point, is our role as a general contractor is not necessarily being a professional in any of these facets or industries. We're leaning on the trust of our trade partners to really be that professional in the field. So from our perspective, it is a lot higher level of just knowing the small nuances about each of their work and what it takes to get it done. And that's where we find benefit in plugging a lot of that in terms of documentation, tracking, um, utilizing agents that are project specific to have that memory of what was done and when. So a great example is the Holly Theater on a phased project like that, where there might be a lag from finishing one portion of the project to starting the next. Our requirements on the labor side of things might require us to put new personnel dedicated to that job based on somebody else getting assigned to their next project. So having a platform such as AI to input all of that information into and have that landing spot for the next group of folks that are going to jump in to the next portion, I can see as being a potential benefit. Not only in day-to-day communication, but daily logs, pulling from some of our management softwares, identifying what was done on what day, reviewing photos of what was complete versus what wasn't, when it was done, how it was completed, who was working on site that day, if we have a question about the way something was done or where it was routed. So I do see a lot of benefit in terms of the overall job tracking, documentation, and then being able to get the next party that's going to take that project on up to speed. I think it also goes back to the phases that we talked about earlier on the pre-construction versus construction side. So if we're utilizing agents or an AI model that pulls from multiple different, whether it be our accounting, estimating, projects, management software, but a landing spot to provide all of that data to be able to hand over a project easier to the pre-construction team over to the construction team. Being able to create summaries of what our exclusions are, what was figured in the budget, what wasn't, some of our potential risks on the project. I see benefit there to increase our communication moving forward.
Yeah, and I wonder, as a general contractor, you kind of had the bird's eye view of, what's happening across not only the project, but probably the industry and in the region as well. Is there a difference, and maybe there's not, but are you seeing a difference in subs or tradespeople who are using this emerging tech and doing it well versus ones who, maybe laggards or not using it as much as possible? And then I wonder too, does it have an effect on any of the pricing models that you use it? In other words, are your subs and your teams, are they becoming more efficient as they use this technology and making the costs go down, or is that not really a thing?
I don't know that we're there yet. I do see in the future that there could be some potential for that. Right now, I feel like we're just getting whiplashed quite a bit of what's right, what isn't right, what model to use, what to integrate, what not to integrate. So it's been a pretty difficult. Like I said, I think this last 3 months we've really seen a huge uptick. So from our perspective, we're utilizing tools that we know benefit or streamline our processes. We have not necessarily implemented, a full AI model or a specific agent, anything that is really connecting all of our systems yet, just because we're holding off to wait and see what works, what doesn't work. What company is going to come out with something that's going to connect all of our tools versus going into an agreement with this one and then come to find out a month later we should be navigating another way. So from our perspective, we're slow rolling into it, trying to figure out what works best for us and how it's going to benefit our team. And then I think once we get to that spot is when we'll start to see some of the pricing benefits and the production efficiencies with it. Right now, a lot of it is just a personal level. So what helps you get your job done better? We haven't really reached the overarching company benefits of it. And then in terms of subcontractors, I think you can see who's utilizing it just in terms of the way their documents are formatted or clearly put together. I see it a lot in email responses, folks that are utilizing it to consolidate, concise, and put together a clearly communicated email. I personally don't have a whole lot of experience on estimates yet, just because I do think it's a newer topic that people are kind of timid about right now. That's our livelihood, right? We go and get a job with the wrong number because it wasn't reviewed or properly put together. That's something that we have to hold on to, and it could severely impact a company. So I don't know of anybody that's trusting it to that scale yet from what I've experienced, but I don't think we're too far off from taking some advantages or some other folks taking advantage of those opportunities.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to also, just for our guests or for our audience members rather, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat and we'll make sure to address them. So I want to switch gears a little bit, Randall, and this one is for you, talking about taxes. So the federal geothermal tax credit expired at the end of 2025, and I can imagine that is a challenge for a business built around energy efficient systems like yours is. Do you think, is there any type of tech that might help fill that gap, like some energy modeling, for instance, better performance data? I think you talked about that a bit. And what does that look like from where you're standing in your role today?
Yeah, thank you, Mary. The geothermal federal tax credit expired at the end of 2025. It was a 30% federal tax credit on the entire project related to geothermal. So it was a significant tens of thousands of dollars on even a residential project. So it was a significant hit. Geothermal represents a niche market for us. And I'm not super concerned about the federal tax credit expiring in 2025. It will be back, and I'll come back to that in a moment. The gap, though, between, I mean, specifically with geothermal, without getting too into the weeds, there was a huge performance efficiency gap between geothermal, which was a really high efficient technology, and conventional HVAC solutions. With the advent of inverter technology, which is like variable frequency drive compressors with multi-speed fan motors and some of the controls, the gap closed pretty significantly over the last 10 years between geothermal efficiency and conventional HVAC efficiency. So a lot of the geothermal market was diminishing before the expiration of this tax credit. It's important to remember, I forget, EPA says something like 75% of a building or a home's energy usage is relative to the HVAC equipment. So in our industry, there's always a lot of rebates and incentives, tax credits, etc. It's always important to remember that's a signal that the government is trying to provoke technological advancement and move into a direction. When they're offering tax credits and incentives and rebates, they're putting their money into advancement. And as a free market guy, a lot of times these technologies wouldn't make it in a free market, in a free enterprise market. So it needs some government backing to kind of promote and to provoke technological advancement. So that's why they do it. New technology is super costly to develop and to scale. And so, the rebates kind of reflect that. They encourage consumers and developers and engineers to do something that maybe they wouldn't otherwise do. And in so doing, it provides a whole economy to move forward on products that might otherwise have a lot of drive behind them. Geothermal is an incredible technology, but the newer conventional HVAC technology is equally impressive. I say that the geothermal tax credit will likely come back because we're going to be moving, the next frontier is going to be packaged gas-fired water-sourced heat pumps. And that will move to consumer scale. So not just on commercial buildings where we're used to seeing like chillers and water towers and things like that. And then you have a water source heat pump system, but it'll be to scale to where like consumers will see a lot more of them in residential applications as well. And so as that frontier begins to emerge, and it will very likely be incentivized or re-incentivized with tax credits and rebates. So where AI falls into all of that, it would come back to system performance and equipment and HVAC technology. It has to save building operators money. It has to be able to manage comfort, and it has to be able to manage like code compliant design features like air exchanges and ventilation and all of these things. And so as some of these codes get more stringent, it's imperative that the equipment performance and the system performance continues to grow and to meet these demands. So it's kind of a complicated thing. It goes beyond more just the geothermal niche, but we're going to see it incorporated into some of these other aspects of HVAC as well.
Super interesting. As you're speaking, I'm realizing that you guys are like very engineering minded. I've always just been a consumer at the consumer end of, hey, my air conditioning's not working, but I can see that there's a lot of thought and engineering mindset that goes behind what you have to do. So hold that thought too, because I want to come back to workforce, because obviously we are interested in the workforce here in the Rogue Valley. But before we do, Mason, I have one more question for you, and that's the barriers that you see. And if you would, I don't know you tell us if Outlier also operates outside the Rogue Valley, but are there barriers in the Rogue Valley that you see right now in terms of the work that you're doing, or if not the Rogue Valley, then just the industry in terms of adoption? Give us kind of like the SWOT analysis, if you would, like this is how things are going and these are the barriers, but in relationship to how you think the Rogue Valley is doing compared to maybe other places that you might be aware of.
Hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, we do operate. I think we're licensed in 4 states now: California, Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. I'm actually coming to you live from a conference room in the Boise airport right now, traveling back home from a project we have over here. So um, I don't know that the Rogue Valley, I guess the Rogue Valley not only is construction industry behind pace of technology, I would say the Rogue Valley is even further behind that pace. So coming from a larger market prior to moving back home in 2019, I was up in the Portland market. So even at that point in time, what I was utilizing technology wise in that market prior to moving back home, we're not even at that same spot in the Rogue Valley right now. I think it's a complicated thing just on size of projects and some of our workforce opportunities, the workforce pool that we have, and the scale of projects that I was on up in Portland that we don't really see down in Southern Oregon as much. So we don't always have the avenues to utilize some of the technology just because the projects won't support it. The Rogue Valley is a very competitive market, so we want to make sure we're not utilizing things that aren't necessary or not needed, that would just drive project costs up. So we want to make sure we're providing the best value for our clients. So yeah, I think the barriers for AI right now is just the ever evolving updates, changes, what's right, what isn't right, releasing this model, pulling it back, just trying to identify what's going to benefit us most and not trickle down and provide an impact to our customers or our projects. So I think it kind of went back to what we talked to earlier, where we're stuck in limbo right now with what to plug in and where. With the ever evolving nature of what we're dealing with right now, it's more or less just trying to identify what we can use to make ourselves as efficient as possible on our day-to-day roles and tasks, and make sure that we're doing our own research, identifying what to implement, when and how, and leaning on folks that are more familiar with those practices and also have knowledge of the construction industry and what's been utilized, what's been successful in another market, how did that work, to identify when we really jump in and take the next step forward into more or less the automation, the integration between multiple softwares, and how we can find benefit in it. I don't know that there's necessarily any weaknesses in utilizing AI right now. I think everybody should be utilizing it to whatever extent or capacity they see fit or comfortable in. It just goes back to double checking, making sure what you're getting back is accurate, it's usable, it's correct, and you're still knowledgeable about the topic that you're going into. Like I said, there's so many different personalities, types of people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You can find yourself in a pinch pretty quick by just sending something over and that person picking up the phone and asking you about it, and then you're stuck on your heels with not knowing what you were talking about. So I think identifying what to use, when, where, and how is super important, and making sure you're ahead of the curve and ready to implement once the time comes.
Okay, great. Really good. So my last question is for both of you. It's similar, it's the same question really. And it's in terms of, you are both obviously working in and thriving in the Rogue Valley in this industry, in an emerging period of time when tech is really changing and all of this. What advice would you have for folks who either want to enter the industry, maybe they're unemployed now, or maybe they're employed in a different industry and they want to come, into the construction industry, into the trades. What would you give them in terms of advice about, if you were to kind of look into your crystal ball and be starting your career again here in 2026, what would you wish you would have known then that you know now and want to share the advice? And Randall, I'll start with you.
Yeah, the diversify your skill set, and that's your best opportunity to succeed and to excel in the future. I think the AI is predicated on logic built systems. So I think incorporating logic into your way of thinking and your way of doing things is going to be advantageous. So whether you're just now starting down a career out of high school or out of college, be thinking at processes and protocols linearly and how they go from one step to the next and try to map it. Having some cognition in mapping logic, I think, is going to be really important for people to utilize to successfully utilize AI. I think if you just on a surface level or asking it to like build a resume or asking it a hard question or something like that, there may be kind of a superficial use for it, but for the people that are trying to run a business and enhance their field efficiency and become better and to be able to solve complex issues, I think that you need to have a different mindset when approaching AI. And I think that the other thing, my wife and I, we have 5 children, and our oldest is 17, our youngest is 8, and we're starting to kind of get into that late high school. Hey, what are we going to do with our life sort of conversations? And I love the trades. The trades have been good to me. I love skilled labor. I love technical skills, and I think that there's going to be continue to be an emergence of opportunities in that area. I like business. I like communication. I like ethics. I like philosophy. I think that the people that are writing scripts and writing AI and programming it, it's going to need to be moderated with some ethical jurisprudence or however you want to say it. I think that that's going to be super important. The thing with the emergence of AI, AI is non-human, actionable protocols that are happening. And so we're going to become inundated with that, the non-human interaction. But technology doesn't replace human connection and human emotion. And I think we can't lose sight of that. We still need business managers. We still need consultants. We still need people who can ask a potential client, what problem are you trying to solve, and provide a handful of solutions and say, okay, well, you've mentioned this is the problem. Well, we can solve it this way, or we can solve it this way, or we can solve it this way. Being creative and being empathetic and being resilient. Listen, we have about 40 employees, 35 employees right now, I think. And, I'm dealing with personnel issues every day. AI isn't gonna run a business when it comes to, some of the family problems, the dynamics that we're faced with. So um, there's a lot to be discovered in this frontier, and I think that just throwing your hands up in the air and saying, "Well, AI is going to take care of everything," I think will maybe um, lead to more dysfunction and more, failure and more conflict and more, gaps in communication. So I think that we need people that have strong reasoning comprehension and are resilient.
Yeah, it's kind of back to the basics in certain ways.
Yeah.
Football season is starting up, and they talk about the fundamentals, right? So
Mm.
in leadership and in, business and all of this, it's the fundamentals. Mason, same question to you. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I think Randall hit a lot of that right on the head. From my perspective, I would tell a young person that's unsure of what they want to do just to find their passion. Your passion's going to bring you wherever you land, whether that's utilizing AI to a certain extent or not. You'll find out down the road, but identify what you care about. Is it working with a group of people? Is it working with your hands? Is it in this industry or another industry? Identify what is going to make you want to get up in the morning and be excited for work, tackle that next task. I think the AI portion of it is just identifying how you can utilize it to make your life more efficient, better, how we can streamline our day of work and have a little bit more time to be humans again. Would be something that we could all benefit from. So um, utilizing it in whatever way you can for what fits your needs is going to be a huge topic of conversation over the next few years, I think. Um, I, I foresee at a certain point here we're going to appreciate our human to human connections a lot more. Those client relationships, those personal relationships are going to go a lot further than they did at one point because it's real, and that's what we're all going to be looking for is those real interpersonal connections.
So good. Thank you both. I really appreciate this conversation. I didn't expect that, construction tradesmen, maybe it's a little bit of bias on me, but that would also be gentlemen scholars and philosophers as well. So thank you both for your time. It's been really interesting, informative for me, and I'm sure for everyone listening as well. If my team would bring up the slide, thank you very much. On the left side of your screen, you'll see a link for a free AI tool from the Department of Labor that will help you take the next step toward an AI-ready America. I encourage everyone to scan the code or text the number, explore the resource, and start embedding these capabilities into your daily workflows. And then on the right, you should see, and you do, a QR code linking to a page with more information on, as well as the recordings and past sessions of our AI series. This page also has a link to register for our remaining session in AI in natural resources, if you haven't done that yet. And additionally, I wanted to share that in September, we're hosting an event for leaders in the construction industry and in key community partners called the Build Rogue Valley Luncheon. We're holding the event to support youth workforce development in the trades. And if you're a community partner or employer and have not yet signed up, we encourage you to reach out to our Senior Communications Manager, Spencer McQuarrie, and get involved in the discussion. And then finally, stay tuned for other upcoming AI upskilling opportunities, roundtable series, and workshops coming your way from Rogue Workforce Partnership. Thank you again for your time and have a lovely day. Thank you all.
Thank you.